Ethan Rowe had never been good at standing still, but here he was, frozen on a balcony of crystalline glass that seemed far too fragile to hold the weight of his nerves. The warship drifted silently through orbit, its hull gleaming like a cathedral of light, and the violet sky stretched endlessly above him. He tried to remind himself that he was a linguist, not a soldier, not a negotiator, and certainly not someone who should be standing opposite an alien queen whose ears looked like they belonged in a fantasy novel rather than a battlefield. Yet Eloria Nix stood there, calm and radiant, her pale blue skin glowing faintly as though the ship's artificial wind had painted her with starlight. She smiled at him, and Ethan felt his knees wobble in a way that was deeply unprofessional. He cleared his throat, hoping to sound dignified, but what came out was more of a squeak. "So," he said, "do you, always conduct peace talks on balconies, or is this just the deluxe package?" Eloria tilted her head, her long ears twitching slightly in amusement. "You seem uncomfortable, human. Is it the view, or is it me?" Ethan glanced at the battlefield circling the planet, debris glittering like confetti from a very unfortunate parade. "The view is fine," he said quickly. "I mean, if you ignore the floating wreckage of ships and the occasional explosion. It's very scenic, like a postcard from the apocalypse. As for you, well, you're terrifying, but in a very elegant way." Her smile widened, and Ethan felt a strange relief. Humor, he realized, was his only weapon here. If he couldn't negotiate like a diplomat, maybe he could at least distract her with jokes until someone smarter arrived. Inside the throne chamber behind them, glyphs pulsed faintly, humming with restrained power. Ethan had peeked inside earlier and nearly fainted when one of the symbols shifted to resemble a human face. He had muttered something about haunted wallpaper, and Eloria had laughed, a sound like bells echoing through the chamber. Now, standing on the balcony, he wondered if those glyphs were listening to him, waiting for him to say something foolish enough to trigger interstellar doom. "So," he said again, trying to keep his voice steady, "you mentioned a choice. I'm guessing it's not between coffee or tea." Eloria's eyes gleamed. "You are correct. It is a choice that will determine the fate of your people and mine." Ethan swallowed hard. "Right. No pressure then. Just the fate of two civilizations. Easy stuff. I mean, I once had to decide between buying a regular toaster or one with a bagel setting, so I'm basically trained for this." Her laughter rang out again, and Ethan felt a flicker of pride. If nothing else, he was making her laugh. That had to count for something in the grand scheme of galactic diplomacy. The ship shuddered slightly as it passed through a field of debris, and Ethan gripped the railing, trying not to look like he was panicking. "Is it normal for your ships to glide through battlefields like this?" he asked. "Because back home, we usually try to avoid flying into places where things explode. It's kind of a rule." Eloria's expression softened. "This war has lasted too long. The battlefield is everywhere. There is no safe path." Ethan nodded, then muttered, "Well, that's depressing. I was hoping for at least one scenic detour, maybe a galactic beach resort. Do you have those? Because I could really use a vacation." Her smile returned, and Ethan felt the tension ease slightly. He realized that beneath her calm exterior, she carried the weight of centuries, of battles fought and choices made. Yet she still laughed at his clumsy jokes, still found humor in his nervous rambling. The glyphs inside the chamber pulsed brighter, and Ethan felt a strange vibration in the air, as though the ship itself was listening. He wondered if the choice she offered him was already written in those symbols, waiting for him to stumble into destiny. He took a deep breath. "Okay," he said, "I'm listening. What's the choice?" Eloria stepped closer, her presence both comforting and overwhelming. "You may return to your world, carrying the knowledge of what you have seen. Or you may stay, binding yourself to mine, and together we may end this war." Ethan blinked. "That's it, that's the choice. Go home or stay here forever. That's not a choice, that's a cosmic prank. I mean, what if I just want to visit occasionally? Like a galactic airbnb situation?" Her laughter echoed again, but her eyes remained serious. It is not a prank, it is destiny. Ethan rubbed his temples. Destiny, right, of course. Because when I signed up to be a linguist, I definitely expected to be offered cosmic destiny by a queen with ears that could pick up satellite radio. The ship drifted onward, engines humming in tones Ethan swore sounded suspiciously like jazz. He tried to focus, tried to remember that this was bigger than him, bigger than his jokes. Yet humor was the only way he knew how to survive the weight pressing down on him. He looked at her, at the calm smile that carried both promise and threat, and said, "Well, I guess I should ask, do you have good coffee here? Because if I'm going to stay forever, I'll need at least 3 cups a day." Her smile deepened, and for a moment the war, the battlefield, the glyphs, all of it seemed to fade. There was only her, the balcony, and the absurdity of a human linguist trying to negotiate peace with jokes about coffee. Ethan froze, knowing that whichever choice he made, the universe would never be the same. And yet, in that moment, he couldn't help but think, if destiny came with laughter, maybe it wasn't so terrifying after all. Ethan followed Eloria into the throne chamber, though throne chamber felt like the wrong word. It wasn't a room so much as a living cathedral of light, its walls carved from crystalline structures that pulsed with glyphs older than any human language. The symbols glowed faintly, shifting in patterns that made Ethan's brain itch, as if they were trying to crawl into his thoughts and rearrange them alphabetically. He muttered under his breath, "Great, alien karaoke lyrics, just what I needed." Eloria glanced back, her long ears twitching slightly, and smiled. "You hear them, don't you?" "Hear them?" Ethan said, trying not to trip over a floor that looked suspiciously like glass. "I'm hearing them, seeing them, and I think one of them just winked at me. If these glyphs start asking me to dance, I'm out." Her laughter rang through the chamber, soft and melodic, and Ethan felt the tension ease for a moment. He had expected solemnity, maybe a lecture about destiny, but instead she seemed amused by his nervous rambling. It was oddly comforting, like realizing your terrifying professor also enjoys bad puns. The glyphs pulsed brighter as they approached the center of the chamber. Ethan squinted, trying to make sense of the patterns. His training as a linguist told him there was structure here, syntax, rhythm, maybe even grammar, but his human brain kept translating it into nonsense. One symbol looked like a cat chasing its tail, another resembled a sandwich, and a third reminded him of his high school math teacher's hairline. He rubbed his temples. "I'm supposed to decode this. I can barely decode IKEA instructions." Eloria's smile widened. "You underestimate yourself. These glyphs respond to thought, not speech. They are alive." Ethan froze. "Alive? As in they're listening right now, because I may have just insulted one by calling it a sandwich." The glyphs shimmered, and Ethan swore he heard a faint chuckle in the vibrations. He groaned. "Fantastic! I've offended ancient alien graffiti. Humanity's first impression, we're rude to wall art." Eloria's laughter echoed again, but her eyes carried a weight that reminded him this wasn't just a comedy routine. The glyphs weren't decoration. They were history, prophecy, maybe even weapons. He felt the hum in his bones, a resonance that made him wonder if the ship itself was alive, watching him, waiting for him to say something important instead of babbling about sandwiches. He tried to focus, tried to push past the humor. "So what do they say?" he asked. "They speak of choices," Eloria replied. "They speak of bonds that can end wars or forge chains. They speak of you." Ethan blinked. "Me? I'm in the alien karaoke lyrics. That's flattering, I guess. Do they say anything about my coffee addiction? Because that's kind of central to my identity." The glyphs pulsed brighter, and Ethan swore one of them shifted into the shape of a steaming mug. He pointed at it wide-eyed. "Okay, that's either destiny or the universe mocking me, probably both." Eloria's smile softened. "They respond to your thoughts. They show you what you fear, what you desire." Ethan rubbed his chin. "So if I think about pizza, will they?" He stopped as a glyph flickered into a perfect slice of pepperoni. Oh no, this is dangerous. I could get stuck here forever just thinking about food. Her laughter rang out again, but beneath it Ethan felt the gravity of the moment. The glyphs weren't toys. They were alive, ancient, and they were listening to him. He wondered if humanity was ready for this kind of connection, or if he was about to doom his species by accidentally thinking about socks. The chamber vibrated, a low hum that made the air shimmer. Ethan felt his heart race. "Okay," he said. "So these glyphs are alive, they're listening, and they're apparently obsessed with my snack cravings. What exactly am I supposed to do here?" Eloria stepped closer, her presence overwhelming yet strangely comforting. "You must choose. The glyphs will guide you, but the choice is yours." Ethan swallowed hard. "Right, no pressure. Just me, ancient alien graffiti, and the fate of 2 civilizations. Easy stuff. I mean, I once had to decide between regular toothpaste and whitening toothpaste, so I'm basically trained for this." The glyphs pulsed again, brighter, faster, as though responding to his sarcasm. He felt the vibrations in his chest, in his bones, in his thoughts. He wondered if they were laughing at him, or if they were trying to show him something deeper. He closed his eyes, trying to focus. Images flickered in his mind: Earth, fragile and beautiful, coffee shops buzzing with life, laughter echoing in crowded streets. Then another image. Eloria's world, vast and luminous, filled with beings who carried the weight of centuries. He felt the pull of both, the impossibility of choosing between them. He opened his eyes, heart pounding. "So, let me get this straight. I can go home, tell everyone I met an alien queen with ears that could pick up satellite radio, and spend the rest of my life explaining why I didn't end a war. Or I can stay here forever, bound to your world, probably doomed to spend eternity arguing with glowing graffiti. Is that about right?" Eloria's smile was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of stars. "That is the choice." Ethan groaned. "You know, back on Earth, choices usually involve pizza toppings. This is a little more intense." The glyphs pulsed again, and Ethan swore one of them shifted into the shape of a pineapple. He pointed at it, horrified. "Oh no, they're judging me for liking pineapple on pizza. This is worse than destiny. This is shame." Her laughter echoed through the chamber, and Ethan felt the tension ease again. Humor was his only weapon, his only shield against the enormity of what lay before him. He realized that if he was going to survive this, if he was going to make a choice that mattered, he would have to keep laughing, even if the universe itself was laughing back. The chamber hummed louder, the glyphs pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Ethan stood frozen, knowing that whichever choice he made, the universe would never be the same. Yet in that moment he couldn't help but think, if destiny came with jokes about pizza, maybe it wasn't so terrifying after all. Ethan leaned against the railing of the balcony, though calling it a railing was generous. It was more like a transparent strip of crystal that looked as though it had been designed by someone who had never heard of safety regulations. Below him, the battlefield stretched endlessly, fragments of ships spinning in orbit like glitter tossed by a careless giant. He tried to look heroic, chin lifted, shoulders squared, but mostly he was trying not to faint. His stomach churned every time a piece of debris drifted too close, and he muttered, "If I die here, I hope someone at least writes on my tombstone, 'He died looking cool.'" Eloria joined him, her presence calm, her long ears catching the artificial wind as though they were antennae tuned to some cosmic frequency. She stood beside him, silent for a moment, watching the wreckage with eyes that seemed to carry the weight of centuries. Ethan glanced at her, then quickly looked away, because staring at her too long made him feel like he was being graded on an exam he hadn't studied for. "So," he said, trying to break the silence, "do you ever get used to this view? Because I'm thinking of giving it 1 star on TripAdvisor. Too much debris, not enough beaches." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "You find humor in destruction. That is unusual." "Unusual," Ethan said, "it's survival. If I don't laugh, I'll cry, and crying in zero gravity is messy." The tears just float around and make you look like you're allergic to destiny." Her laughter rang out, soft but genuine, and Ethan felt a flicker of relief. Humor was working. He wasn't sure if it was diplomacy or just distraction, but it was keeping the tension from swallowing him whole. The ship drifted closer to the battlefield, its shields shimmering like stained glass windows. Ethan squinted at them, muttering, "You know, back home we use shields for medieval reenactments. Yours look like they belong in a cathedral. Very stylish. Do they come in different colors? Maybe something in beige?" Eloria tilted her head, amused. "You mock what protects you." "I'm not mocking," Ethan said quickly. "I'm appreciating. It's just, if humanity had shields like this, we'd probably use them to protect coffee shops. Priorities, you know." Her smile widened, and Ethan felt the tension ease again. He realized that beneath her calm exterior, she carried the weight of endless battles, yet she still laughed at his clumsy jokes. It was strange, surreal, and oddly comforting. The battlefield outside shimmered with fragments of ships, glowing faintly like dying stars. Ethan tried not to think about the lives lost, the wars fought, the choices that had led to this endless orbit of destruction. Instead, he focused on humor, because humor was the only way he knew how to survive the enormity of it all. "So," he said, "about that choice you mentioned, end the war or bind myself to your world forever. I've been thinking, is there a third option? Like I stay part-time, maybe weekends only, galactic airbnb." Her laughter echoed again, but her eyes remained serious. "There is no third option, only destiny." Ethan groaned. "Destiny, right. Of course. Because when I signed up to be a linguist, I definitely expected to be offered cosmic destiny by a queen with ears that could probably pick up Wi-Fi." The ship shuddered slightly as it passed through another field of debris, and Ethan gripped the railing, muttering, "Okay, seriously, do you have seatbelts on this thing? Because I'm feeling very exposed right now." Eloria's smile softened. "You fear what you cannot control." "Fear?" Ethan said. No, this isn't fear. This is healthy caution. Fear is when you see a spider in your bathroom. This is more like realizing you're standing on a balcony made of glass while space junk flies past your head. Totally different." Her laughter rang out again, and Ethan felt the tension ease once more. He realized that humor wasn't just survival, it was connection. It was the only way he knew how to bridge the gap between his fragile humanity and her ancient, alien calm. The engines hummed, a low vibration that Ethan swore sounded suspiciously like jazz. He tilted his head, listening. "Is that music? Because if your ship is playing jazz, I'm impressed. Back home, we can barely get our cars to play the radio without static." Eloria's eyes gleamed. "The ship sings, it is alive." Ethan blinked. "Alive, as in it's listening right now, because I may have just insulted its taste in music." The hum deepened, and Ethan swore he heard a faint chuckle in the vibrations. He groaned. "Fantastic! I've offended ancient alien jazz. Humanity's first impression, we're rude to musical spaceships." Her laughter echoed again, but beneath it Ethan felt the gravity of the moment. The ship wasn't just a vessel, it was alive, listening, waiting. He wondered if the choice she offered him was already written in its song, waiting for him to stumble into destiny. He took a deep breath, trying to focus. "Okay," he said, "so let me get this straight. I can go home, tell everyone I met an alien queen with ears that could pick up satellite radio, and spend the rest of my life explaining why I didn't end a war. Or I can stay here forever, bound to your world, probably doomed to spend eternity arguing with glowing graffiti and jazz-playing spaceships. Is that about right?" Eloria's smile was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of stars. "That is the choice." Ethan rubbed his temples. "You know, back on Earth, choices usually involve pizza toppings. This is a little more intense." The ship hummed louder, the battlefield shimmering outside, the horizon stretching endlessly before them. Ethan stood frozen, knowing that whichever choice he made, the universe would never be the same. Yet in that moment he couldn't help but think, If destiny came with jokes about coffee, pizza, and jazz, maybe it wasn't so terrifying after all. Ethan stood on the balcony once more, the violet sky stretching endlessly above him, the battlefield glittering faintly in orbit like the remnants of a fireworks show gone terribly wrong. The warship glided smoothly, its engines humming in tones that still sounded suspiciously like jazz, and he wondered if the ship had developed a sense of humor just to mock him. He had spent days, or maybe hours. Time was slippery here, wandering through glyphlet chambers, listening to Eloria's calm voice, and trying not to embarrass humanity by accidentally thinking about pizza during cosmic negotiations. Now the moment had arrived. The choice was no longer abstract. It was here, heavy and unavoidable, wrapped in the Queen's smile. She stood beside him, her long ears catching the artificial wind, her pale blue skin glowing softly against the light. She repeated her offer, her voice steady, her eyes carrying the weight of stars. You may return to your world, carrying the knowledge of what you have seen, or you may stay, binding yourself to mine, and together we may end this war. Ethan froze, not because he lacked words, but because he suddenly realized words were no longer enough. Humor had carried him this far, jokes about toaster ovens, coffee, and pineapple pizza, but now the laughter thinned, leaving only the hum of glyphs and the silence of stars. He thought about Earth, about crowded coffee shops, and the absurdity of explaining to his friends that he had been recruited by an alien queen with ears that could probably pick up Wi-Fi. He thought about the battlefield, the wreckage, the possibility of peace. And then he thought about her smile, the calm weight behind it, the promise of something larger than war. He cleared his throat. So just to confirm, there's no option 3. Like I stay part-time, maybe weekends only. Galactic Airbnb. Her lips curved into a faint smile. No, only destiny. Ethan sighed. Figures. Destiny never offers flexible scheduling. The glyphs inside the throne chamber pulsed brighter as though listening. He felt their hum in his bones, their rhythm syncing with his heartbeat. He wondered if they were laughing at him or if they were waiting for him to finally stop joking and make a decision. He closed his eyes, trying to focus. Images flickered in his mind. Earth, fragile and beautiful, laughter echoing in crowded streets, coffee steaming in mugs. Then another image. Eloria's world, vast and luminous, filled with beings who carried the weight of centuries, waiting for someone foolish enough to believe peace was possible. He opened his eyes, heart pounding. Okay, he said, I'll stay. Not because I'm brave, but because I'm terrible at goodbyes. And because if I go home, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if I should have stayed. Also, your ship plays jazz, and I can't pass that up. Eloria's smile deepened, and for the first time, Ethan felt the tension lift completely. The battlefield outside shimmered, but it no longer looked like wreckage. It looked like possibility, like fragments waiting to be rebuilt. The glyphs pulsed brighter, their hum rising into a chorus that filled the chamber, and Ethan swore he heard laughter in their rhythm, as though the universe itself was amused by his decision. The ship shuddered, not with violence but with transformation. Shields flared, engines sang louder, and the battlefield outside began to shift. Debris drifted together, fragments aligning, as though the choice had triggered something larger than either of them. Ethan gripped the railing wide-eyed. Okay, is this normal? Because back home, when I make a choice, nothing explodes, usually. Eloria's eyes gleamed. The glyphs respond. The war begins to end. Ethan blinked. Wait, just like that. I say yes and the war ends. That's efficient. Honestly, we should hire you to run Earth's elections. Her laughter rang out again, and Ethan felt the weight of centuries dissolve into something lighter. He realized that humor hadn't just been survival, it had been connection. It had bridged the gap between his fragile humanity and her ancient calm, between Earth's chaos and her world's destiny. The battlefield outside shimmered brighter, fragments aligning into patterns that looked suspiciously like stained glass windows. Ethan squinted. Okay, that's beautiful, but also kind of terrifying. If those fragments form into a giant pizza slice, I'm blaming the glyphs." The glyphs pulsed, and for a moment Ethan swore he saw the outline of a steaming mug of coffee. He groaned. "Great. Even destiny thinks I'm predictable." Eloria stepped closer, her presence overwhelming yet comforting. "You have chosen. You will stay. Together we will end this war." Ethan nodded, trying to look dignified, though his knees still wobbled. "Right. End the war. Save civilizations. And maybe, if there's time, invent a toaster that doesn't burn bagels." Her laughter echoed again, and Ethan felt the universe shift. The warship glided toward the horizon, its engines singing, its shields shimmering, and the battlefield outside transforming into something new. He realized that he had changed too. He was no longer just a linguist fumbling through alien glyphs. He was part of something larger, something absurd and beautiful, something that carried both laughter and destiny. He looked at Eloria, at her calm smile, at the long ears that had once seemed strange but now felt familiar, and said, "Well, I guess this is it. Humanity's representative, bound to an alien queen, ending a war with jokes about coffee. Honestly, I couldn't have written a better resume." The horizon stretched endlessly before them, uncertain and infinite, but Ethan no longer felt frozen. He felt ready. Ready to laugh, ready to stumble, ready to carry the weight of destiny with humor and hope. The glyphs pulsed brighter, the ship sang louder, and the universe itself seemed to smile. And so, beneath a violet sky on a balcony of crystalline glass, Ethan Rowe chose to stay. He chose laughter, he chose connection, he chose destiny. The war began to end, the future began to unfold, and for the first time he felt that the universe was not terrifying at all. It was waiting, amused, and endlessly alive.